And welcome back to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me back.
So today we are opening up a file that at first glance anyway might look like your standard high fantasy adventure.
Right.
We've got maps, we've got magic swords, we have witches riding dragons, and quite a lot of people brooding on rooftop.
A lot of brooding.
A lot of it. But we are here today to talk about this specific source text, the Heir of Fire book by Sarah J. Maas. And I just want to be clear right up front with you, the listener. If you think this is just a story about a girl learning to throw fireballs, you are missing the point entirely.
Completely. I mean, this really the pivot point of the entire narrative saga. But more importantly, it is an absolute masterclass in the psychology of hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
We are stepping away from the mundane world and walking straight into a realm of high fantasy, ancient magic, and honestly, some very serious emotional turmoil.
Exactly. And for you listening, if you're thinking, well, I don't know if I'm ready for a massive fantasy deep dive today, trust me, you are.
Oh, for sure.
Because at its core, this is really a story about a woman named Celaena Sardothien, who is arguably the world's deadliest assassin, but she is currently just an absolute mess.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
She's in a foreign land called Wendlyn. She's separated from literally everyone she knows, and she's done.
Done is a very polite way of putting it. I mean, she is functionally broken. And that is exactly where our source material begins. We aren't starting with a hero on a white horse here.
No.
We are starting with a hero face down on a roof, baking in the sun, and actively hiding from her responsibilities.
So let's really unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to take this massive text, and it is a dense book, there are a lot of moving threads here, and pull out that key transformation.
Right.
We want to understand how this character goes from an assassin running from her past to a queen who is, ready to burn the world down to save it.
Which is quite the leap.
It is. And we also have to talk about all the new players on the board because the world building expands massively in this text.
It really does. We're introduced to new continents, totally new magical threats, and we finally get to see the Fae in their actual element.
Yeah.
But everything, all of it, ties back to that central theme of identity.
Who are you when everything you loved is gone?
Exactly. And specifically, who are you when you realize that the person you created just to survive, the assassin persona, is no longer enough to protect you?
So let's jump right into the first section, the assassin on the roof. Because the opening of this text is so incredibly visceral, we are in Wendlyn. Could you set the scene for us? What does Wendlyn feel like compared to where Celaena just came from?
It's a total study in contrast.
Yeah.
So Celaena has come from Adarlan, which the text describes as this soggy, frozen empire.
Right.
It's gray, it's oppressive, it's freezing cold. Wendlyn, by comparison, it's basically an assault on the senses in the complete opposite direction.
It's boiling.
Boiling hot. The sun is relentless. The text describes the wind as dry and hot. There's this sense of vibrancy, sure, but also an overwhelming baking heat that just drains you.
And she's in the capital city, Varese. But she's not staying in some luxurious palace. She's literally living on rooftops.
Yeah.
The source text mentions she's been lounging on these terracotta tiles since mid-morning, just baking like a loaf of bread in the sun.
Which is such a specific, powerful image of lethargy. She isn't scouting the area. She isn't training her body. She is, for all intents and purposes, rotting.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about her diet, actually, because the text makes a really big deal about this food called tegya.
Oh, the tegya, the flatbread. I was wondering why the author spends so much time describing a piece of bread.
Right, because it's a symbol of her self-flagellation.
Interesting.
The text explicitly says she is sick of the crunchy, oniony taste of it. It is the food of the city's poorest citizens. She is surviving on stolen flatbread and sour red wine.
Wow.
It paints this picture of someone who has completely ceased to care about their own dignity or comfort. She's essentially a vagrant at this point.
Oh, wait, let's contextualize this for the listener really quick. She came from Adarlan, where she was the king's champion. She had fine clothes, she had massive status, she had food that definitely wasn't onion bread.
Exactly.
So why is she living like this? Because she was sent here by the king of Adarlan on a very specific mission, right? She is supposed to be assassinating the royal family of Wendlyn.
Correct. Her direct orders are to kill the king of Wendlyn and his son, the crown prince Gallanashriver.
Right.
And in exchange for this, the king of Adarlan has promised to spare her friends back home. But the source material explicitly states she has zero intention of doing it.
None at all.
She took one single look at the heavy fortifications around the castle and just gave up. But I think it's important to note it's not just laziness.
No, it's a moral refusal mixed with a deep apathy.
Precise.
There's this quote early on where she describes this hollow feeling inside her. She is drinking just to forget. She's picking fights and brawling in sketchy taverns just to feel physical pain, because that physical pain is so much easier to deal with than the grief she's carrying.
The grief over her friend Nehemia.
Right, Nehemia, who died in the previous narrative arc.
That grief is the heavy anchor dragging her down. She did have a plan, initially. The text tells us she wanted to find Queen Maeve of the Fae to learn about the word keys.
Let's actually define that term quickly for anyone who might be a little rusty on the lore specifics. The wired keys.
Sure. Think of wired keys as essentially the nuclear codes of this fantasy universe.
That's a great way to put it.
They are these ancient artifacts that the King of Adarlan is using to manipulate reality itself and summon these dark forces. They're actually pieces of the wide gates, which connect entirely different worlds.
And Celaena wanted to find them so she could destroy them.
Right. But now that she's finally here in Wendlyn, the will to act has just evaporated completely. She is paralyzed by the trauma of what she's survived.
And then comes the turning point, or I guess really the moment that cements her in action. She actually sees her target.
Yes.
She spots Galen Ashriver, the Crown Prince. She's watching him from the roof, maybe trying to work up the nerve to actually do the job. And what does she see?
This is a crucial, crucial moment. She's watching him, and she realizes he isn't a tyrant at all. He's a blockade runner.
He's a rebel.
Exactly. He is actively fighting against Adarlan. The people in the streets cheer for him when he rides by. He is, objectively speaking, good.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive. Wouldn't a good target be a relief? Or at least make her decision to not kill him easier?
Well, you'd think so. If he were a monster, she could easily justify killing him to save her friends back home. Or she could kill him and feel like she was doing the world a favor.
Right, the classic assassin justification.
But because he is good, she realizes that she is the monster in this equation if she kills him. It just deeply reinforces her self-loathing. She looks down at him and thinks, the world has a hero, it doesn't need me. I'm just a waste of space.
That is just such a grim place to start a story. She's dirty, she's drunk, and she is essentially waiting to die in an alley.
Yeah.
But narrative structure dictates that when you hit absolute rock bottom, someone has to show up to kick you while you're down. Or, in this specific case, a terrifying Fae warrior has to show up.
Enter Rowan Whitethorn.
Yes, Section 2, Enter the Fae. Now, the text describes him in a way that is very specific. He isn't described as handsome initially. He's described as a massive threat.
He is a weapon. That's how she sees him. Tall, broad-shouldered, silver hair. But the really defining feature is the tattoo.
Right.
The text describes this wicked tattoo etched down the left side of his face, going all the way from his temple to his jaw and then disappearing down his neck. It's very stark against his sun-kissed skin, and his eyes are described as pine green.
And the general vibe is definitely not friendly neighborhood watch.
Far from it. He is cold, he is dismissive, and he is utterly unimpressed by her. He finds her rotting in this alley, and the dynamic is instantly established. He's the apex predator, and she is the prey who has completely forgotten how to fight back.
He's basically there to collect her like a bounty.
Exactly. Because, surprise, she has been summoned. He takes her to Doranel, which is the city of the Fae, to finally meet Queen Maeve.
And this meeting changes absolutely everything. We need to pause on the big revelation here, because Maeve isn't just a powerful queen. She is Celaena's aunt.
Yes.
And when Celaena walks into that throne room, Maeve doesn't call her Celaena. She addresses her by her true name.
Aelin Galathynius.
Aelin Galathynius. I want to drill down on this for a second. Why is hearing her own name such a physically violent experience for her? I mean, most people would be happy to be acknowledged as royalty, right? Especially after living in the gutters as an assassin.
It is essential to understand why she reacts this way. Celaena Sardothien is just a mask. It's a persona she has worn simply to survive. Celaena is this swaggering, arrogant assassin who can handle anything you throw at her. But Aelin Galathynius is a scared little girl whose entire kingdom, Terrasen, was burned to the ground.
It's the trauma.
Exactly. Aelin represents total failure. It represents the brutal death of her parents. For 10 whole years, she has buried that name deep down, because acknowledging it means acknowledging all that pain. To be Aelin is to admit that she failed to save her people.
Wow. But Maeve, of course, doesn't care about her feelings at all. Maeve even wants something from her.
Maeve is the ultimate manipulator. She has the information. Aelin desperately wants the knowledge about the wired keys, but she utterly refuses to give it up for free. She strikes a bargain.
Like they always do.
Right. She wants to see what Aelin is truly capable of. Maven knows Aelin has magic,
Yeah.
specifically fire magic, which has been violently suppressed for a decade.
So the deal is essentially, go to my fortress, Mistward, train with Rowan, prove you can actually master your magic and your Fae heritage, and then maybe I'll give you the answers you want.
But there is a very real threat underlying that offer. Maeve specifically mentions the ancient bloodlines, Mabed and Brannon. She wants to see what Avon will become.
Right, it's not a family reunion.
Not at all. It's not a benevolent aunt helping her lost niece. It is a ruthless queen assessing a potential weapon or possibly a massive threat to her own power.
So Alan gets shipped off to Mistward with Rowan, which we will definitely get to, because that training is incredibly intense. It's basically Fae boot camp.
Worse than boot camp.
Yeah. But before we go there, we have to look at what is happening back in the real world, or rather, the world she left behind. Because while Alan is eating onions on a roof in Wendlyn, the Empire of Adolan is completely fallen apart.
Section 3. Meanwhile in Rifthold.
The crumbling center. While Alan is away, the political and social situation in Adarlan is deteriorating rapidly. And the source text gives us three main players here: Chael, Dorian, and a brand new face, Edion.
Let's start with Chael Westfall. He is the captain of the guard. He's actually the one who pulled the strings to send Celaena to Wendlyn in the first place, just to keep her safe. But he seems to be having a massive crisis of faith right now.
Yeah, Chael is really the definition of a man divided in this book.
His entire identity, his whole moral compass, is built on his unwavering loyalty to the king and to his best friend Dorian. But he now knows the horrific truth about the king.
That he's wielding that dark, ancient power.
Right. And he also knows the truth about Celaena, that she isn't just an assassin, she is Aelin, the lost queen of Terrasen. So he's walking this impossible tightrope. He's trying to secretly find out more about the king's dark magic without getting himself executed, and he is keeping massive secrets from everyone around him.
Including his best friend, Dorian Haviliard, the crown prince. Which is rough because Dorian is sitting on a secret of his own that makes Kel's problems look almost manageable by comparison.
Oh, Dorian's situation is terrifying. Dorian has magic. In a kingdom where possessing magic is punishable by immediate, brutal death, the crown prince himself is an ice mage. He can freeze things, he can summon ice storms, and he has absolutely no idea how to control it. He is terrified of his own shadow.
And amidst all this intense fear and isolation, he finds a connection with Sorsha. She's the castle healer.
And this relationship is just heartbreakingly sweet, but it is incredibly fraught with danger. Sorsha is an immigrant. Her home village in Fenhera was actually burned to the ground by Adarlan's armies.
Right, so she has every reason to hate him.
Exactly. She is a nobody in the eyes of the royal court, but she actually sees Dorian, not the prince, not the heir to the evil empire, but just the terrified young man underneath.
It represents a sanctuary for him.
It does. It's a place where he can just be a normal person for a few minutes.
It is a classic tragic setup. They are finding solace in each other right inside the mouth of the wolf. But speaking of wolves, we have to talk about the Wolf of the North, Aedion Shriver.
Aedion is such a fascinating character study in this text. He is Aelin's cousin, and he is a top general in the Adarlan army.
Which is crazy.
To the outside world, and specifically to the surviving people of Terrasen, he looks like the ultimate traitor. He is serving the very man who slaughtered his entire family and conquered his country. He's widely known as the Whore of Adarlan by his detractors because he parties, he brags, and he proudly wears the king's uniform.
But the text makes it clear that is just a cover story.
Precisely. Aedion is the ultimate double agent. He is playing an incredibly long, dangerous game. The text reveals he is actually a rebel leader known as the Bane.
Oh, right.
He wears the king's black ring, which usually controls people's minds and turns them into puppets, but he is actively fighting its influence. He's faking his loyalty.
So he's fully conscious of what he's doing.
Yes. He has been slaughtering his enemies and playing the sycophant for years, just waiting for the perfect chance to strike back at the king.
There is this intensely fraught reunion scene between Aedion and Chael. It is so tense. Aedion finally finds out that Aelin is actually alive.
And that revelation changes his entire world. Aedion represents the pure, unadulterated rage of the oppressed people. He has been willing to do terrible, unforgivable things, to play the villain for years, all to save his country.
Then hearing his queen is alive gives him a focal point for all that rage.
Exactly. He desperately wants to find her. He wants to serve her. But he also realizes in that moment that Chaol was the one who sent her away to another continent, which causes some very significant friction between them.
Right. So Rifthold is basically a powder keg at this point. Chaol is investigating treason, Dorian is hiding outlawed magic, and Adian is actively plotting to overthrow the government. But then right in the middle of all this, the book throws us a massive curveball, a completely different narrative thread.
Section 4. Manon and the Iron Teeth.
Yes. This is often where readers get narrative whiplash, but it is so critical to the broader world building. We are introduced to the witches, specifically the Iron Teeth witches.
And I want to clarify, these are not your standard folklore witches bubbling potions in a little cauldron. They are brutal.
They are apex predators.
They are immortal warriors. We follow a character named Manon Blackbeak. She is the heir to the Blackbeak witch clan. She is completely cruel, highly disciplined, and literally has retractable iron teeth that snap down to tear out throats.
It's so visceral.
It is. The king of Adarlan has secretly recruited them. He is gathering all the witch clans at a place called the Ferian Gap to ride wyverns.
And for the listener, wyverns are basically dragons, right?
Very similar. They are two-legged, winged, leathery beasts bred for war. The king essentially wants an aerial air force for his impending conquests. But first, the witches have to tame these feral beasts.
And this is where we meet Abraxos. I have to say, I love Abraxos. In a huge book full of complex, morally gray humans, my absolute favorite character might just be a wyvern.
Everyone loves Abraxos. So Manon is inspecting the wyverns to choose her mount, and she sees this smaller, heavily scarred, seemingly weak wyvern. He is the bait beast.
The bait beast.
Right, the one they use just to train the larger wyverns how to kill. He's tossed into the pit to be torn apart.
But Manon picks him. Why does she do that? She is obsessed with dominance and strength. Why pick the runt of the litter?
Because she recognizes a fellow survivor. And the way she tames him is incredibly significant to the overarching themes. The other witches use pure brutality, whips, and pain to break their mount's spirits. Manon refuses to break him.
She earns his loyalty instead.
Yes. She fights alongside him. She names him Abraxos, after a great mythical beast of legend, giving him dignity.
It's such a brilliant parallel to Aelin's journey across the sea, isn't it?
It is the mirrored thread of the entire book. On one side, you have Aelin, a highly lethal woman, slowly finding her true power and humanity in Wendlyn. And on the other, you have Manon, another lethal woman finding a completely new kind of strength, which is partnership in the Ferian Gap.
Right. They are both considered monsters in their own narratives.
Exactly. Both are discovering that maybe there is more to their existence than just following orders and killing.
Okay, let's pivot back to the main event. Section 5, Mistward, Aelin and Rowan. We talked about this briefly, the training montage. But it's not really a montage like in a sports movie, is it? It is much more like torture.
It is brutal, unrelenting, physical and psychological breakdown. We were at a fortress called Mistward, located right on the border. It's actually a sanctuary for demi-fae.
People with mixed blood.
Right, people who aren't fully fae and therefore aren't welcome in Medivh's pure cities. Aelin is stuck there with Rowan as her instructor. And when we say training, we definitely don't mean light jogging and target practice.
No. Rowan is quite literally physically beating the magic out of her. He punches her, he throws her into freezing mountain rivers, and he verbally tears her down at every opportunity.
He calls her a spoiled princess. He relentlessly attacks her character.
Why is he so aggressive?
Because from his perspective, it is necessary for her survival. He sees right through her. He knows she is actively blocking her own magic. Aelin simply cannot access her fire magic without going into what they call burnout.
Burnout.
Right, which is where the magic consumes the user's physical body, or she just loses control completely and destroys everything around her.
But why is it so hard for her to use it? She was an elite assassin. She is incredibly athletic and disciplined. What is the actual block?
It's entirely psychological. It's not a physical limitation at all. She cannot access her fire because she is absolutely terrified of it.
Because of her trauma.
Yes. She associates her magic directly with the night her parents died. She secretly believes her fire is what destroyed her life. Deep down, she feels that if she ever fully lets it out, she will destroy the rest of the world. She equates her own power with total ruin.
There's a specific concept they discussed during this time called Karanam. Let's define that for the listener.
Yes, Karanam. It is an ancient Fae term that translates roughly to soulkin. It describes two Fae whose magic is perfectly compatible, meaning they can actually share power back and forth.
It's a very intimate bond.
It's a bond deeper than marriage or standard friendship in their culture. And introducing it here is massive foreshadowing for their eventual connection. But at this stage in the text, they are very far from sharing power. They are barely sharing oxygen without trying to kill each other.
Then we get to the Beltane Festival. This is a massive key moment of failure for Aelin.
It is. Beltane is a traditional fire festival. Aelin attempts to maintain control of the ceremonial bonfires as a test of her restraint. But the environment is too chaotic. She gets lost in the music, in the trance of the magic itself.
She loses focus.
She completely loses the boundary between her own body and the external flame.
The text says she almost burns herself alive from the inside out.
She goes straight into burnout.
Right.
She starts consuming her own physical essence, her own life force, to fuel the fire because she can't channel it properly. Rowan actually has to step in with his own magic, his ice and wind, to save her life.
It's a moment of total, undeniable vulnerability.
And it fundamentally changes their dynamic. After he saves her, he has to care for her physical wounds, and that's when he sees the scars on her back.
The branding marks.
Yes. The horrific scars from her time as a slave in the salt mines of Endovier.
Which happened in the books prior to this one.
Right. That is the major shift for Rowan. He realizes she isn't just some spoiled, arrogant princess who refuses to work hard. He sees tangible proof that she has suffered immensely.
He sees that she's a survivor.
Exactly. He sees the scars, and his overt hostility slowly turns into a begrudging respect and eventually a real partnership. They finally start swapping trauma stories. Rowan reveals his own dark past. He lost his mate, Erilea, many years ago in a brutal attack. He has basically been living in a suicidal fog of grief for centuries.
Yeah, so they are really just two broken people realizing they might be the only ones left who can truly understand each other's pain.
Exactly.
But of course, this is a fantasy epic, so they don't get to just bond in peace by a campfire. We have bad guys coming.
Right on cue.
Section 6, the darkness. The Valg.
The Val.
These things are pure nightmare fuel. What exactly are they, according to the text?
They are a demon race from an entirely different realm. The text describes them as these parasitic entities that literally feed on pain and despair. They're ancient, they're cold, and they leave their victims feeling entirely hollowed out. And now they are starting to appear in Wendlyn.
There's this Darling commander, Narok. He shows up at the border, but he's not just a human man anymore.
No, he has been completely corrupted or possessed by the Valg. He leads a massive ambush attack on Mistward. This is the ultimate test. The training wheels are fully off.
The battle at the fortress is complete chaos. Narok and these grotesque creatures attack the walls. And Erilea makes a choice here, a very heroic but also very stupid choice.
She decides to go outside the protective magical wards. She chooses to hold the front line all by herself, just to give the demi-fae inside a chance to survive.
She uses Goldrun, right?
Yes. She uses Goldrun, that legendary ancient sword she found in a cave earlier in the narrative. It's described as having a massive ruby in the hilt.
But she's fighting with a massive death wish. The text literally says she thinks to herself, I am the expendable one.
That is her rock-bottom self-worth talking. She actively wants to go out in a blaze of glory to finally atone for all her past sins and failures. And the Valg princes, these high-level demons controlling Narok, they sense that immediately. They exploit her guilt. They attack her mind directly.
It's not just a physical fight.
No, it's psychological warfare. They forcefully make her relive the brutal death of her parents. They make her hear the voices of her dead family and Nehemia calling her a coward and a failure.
This leads to the get-up sequence. It gives me chills just reading the summary notes. Walk us through the psychology here. She's physically on the ground. The demons are winning. They are draining her soul. What finally changes?
It is the absolute psychological climax of the entire book. She is lying in the dirt, mentally shattered, hearing everyone she loves tell her she is totally worthless and that she should just die. But then, deep in her subconscious, she sees a vision of her younger self. The little princess, Aelin. The innocent girl who loved reading books and playing music before the world broke her.
And the little princess reaches out a hand and just says, get up.
It is the profound integration of the self. She finally stops rejecting the Aelin part of her identity. She accepts that she is the queen, with all the crushing responsibility that entails. She accepts the immense pain of her past without letting it destroy her. And she actively chooses to get up. She merges the deadly skills of the assassin with the heart of the queen.
And when she gets up, boom.
Massive, apocalyptic firepower. She completely incinerates the Valg. She doesn't just fight them off, she obliterates them with the sheer power of the sun.
It's incredible.
It's the very first time she uses her magic not out of desperate fear, but out of righteous anger and a desire to protect others.
And in the direct aftermath of this incredible battle, we get the blood oath.
This is a huge shift in the lore. Rowan, an ancient Fae warrior who has served Queen Maeve for centuries, willingly pledges himself to Aelin instead. He swears a blood oath to her. But the text makes a very distinct point here. He swears it not as a subservient slave to a master, but as an equal partner.
He says, to whatever end.
To whatever end. That's the defining line. It is a vow of absolute commitment.
It signifies that Aelin finally have a court again. She has her very first night. She is no longer fighting this war alone.
Exact.
But while this massive triumph is happening across the sea in Wendlyn, things are going absolutely terribly back in Rifthold.
Yes, they are.
Section 7, the tragedy in Rifthold.
This section acts as the dark, tragic mirror to Aelin's victory. In Adarlan, all the political storylines suddenly converge. The king of Adarlan finally springs his trap.
He confronts Dorian, Chaol, and Aedion all at once, and he drags Sorsha, the healer, right into the middle of it.
Because he knows everything. He knows Sorsha has been secretly writing letters. She was technically acting as a spy for the rebels, even though her love for Dorian was completely genuine and innocent. The king just uses her as leverage to break his son.
And then comes the execution.
It is incredibly brutal. He has Sorsha beheaded right there on the glass floor, right in front of Dorian. It is a moment of pure, calculated cruelty designed specifically to shatter his son's defiance.
And it works, but really not in the way the king expected, because Dorian just snaps.
His magic explodes outward. The raw ice power he's been suppressing for so long just erupts uncontrollably. He physically attacks his own father with magic.
And Chaol, poor Chaol, he has to make an impossible choice in that moment.
Chaol draws his sword, but he instantly realizes they cannot win this fight. The king's dark power is just too overwhelming. Dorian uses the last shred of his conscious magic to freeze the guards in place, and he turns and yells at Chaol to run.
Oh, man.
Chaol has to leave his best friend behind to be captured in order to escape and save the rebellion.
The consequences of this one scene are just devastating. Chaol barely escapes the castle with the rebel leaders, but he is now a wanted fugitive. Aedion is captured during the chaos and thrown into the dungeons, awaiting a public execution. And Dorian. What happens to Dorian?
Dorian is fully enslaved. The king forces a black wired stone collar around his neck.
The same collars used to control the Valg demons?
Exactly the same. The crown prince is now a literal puppet of his tyrannical father, trapped silently inside his own mind with a demon entity controlling his body.
It is such a staggeringly heavy ending for that side of the cast, but the book doesn't end on that dark night. We go back to Aelin for the grand finale.
Section 8. Heir of Fire, the Queen returns.
Aelin and Rowan return to Dornell to confront Maeve. Aelin has fully held up her end of the bargain. She mastered her magic, she defeated the Valgat Mistward.
But Maeve, being the ancient villain she is, immediately tries to weasel out of the deal.
Shocking no one.
Right. Aelin realizes Maeve never actually intended to help her at all. And this is where Aelin really shows her tactical growth. She doesn't just blindly attack Maeve with fire, she outsmarts her politically.
Oh, so?
She exposes Maeve's deepest lies right in front of her own royal court. She reveals that Maeve secretly wanted the Weird Keys for herself millennia ago, and that Bran and Aelin's legendary ancestor actually stole them to hide them from her, not to hoard power.
And then comes the ultimate display of power, because Maeve thinks she's completely safe sitting inside her stone city.
Aelin casually reminds her, "Your city is made of stone. Your people are not."
Such a cold line.
It is. She bluffs her entirely. Aelin creates a massive, sky-high illusion of fire that makes it look like she is about to incinerate the entire island and everyone on it. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that her control is absolute.
She can burn the world, or she can light a candle.
Exactly. Maeve has no choice but to back down.
So she concedes.
She has to. And Aelin uses that leverage to bargain for Rowan's permanent freedom. Maeve is forced to release Rowan from his centuries of blood-bound service.
And Aelin also figures out the location of the third missing weird key during all of this, right?
Yes. She realizes the truth. It was hidden inside her own amulet. The amulet of Orinth that she wore every day as a child.
Wow.
She lost it when she was found nearly dead on the riverbank by Arab bin Hamel, the king of assassins. So logically, that incredibly dangerous artifact is likely sitting right back in Rifthold, locked away in her old master's vault.
So the stage for the next phase of the war is set. Rowan swears his blood oath to Aelin as a free man, and Aelin finally sets her sights on going home.
She's no longer running away. The narrative ends with her standing on a ship, sailing back across the sea to Adarlan. But she isn't returning as Celaena, the broken assassin. She is officially returning as Aelena Shriver Galathinius, the true queen of Terrasen.
So let's wrap this all up. What an unbelievable journey. We started this deep dive with a girl literally eating stale onions on a roof, wishing she was dead, and we ended with a terrifying queen commanding the element of fire, binding an ancient warrior to her side, and sailing headfirst into a continental war.
It's a massive structural shift in the narrative,
Mm.
but the cost was incredibly high. Just look at the world state at the end of the Heir of Fire book by Sarah J. Maas. It is wildly precarious.
Yeah, Dorian is enslaved by a demon collar.
Adian is sitting on death row.
Jael is running for his life in the sewers.
Madeon is riding a war wyvern, quickly becoming a major military power player.
Yeah.
And the Valg are actively invading the continent.
It sets up the rest of the series just perfectly. But before we sign off, expert, give us that final provocative thought. What should the listener be chewing on after this deep dive?
Well, I really want you to think about the fundamental nature of monsters. The source material heavily emphasizes that Aelin finally accepts she has to be a monster in order to destroy other monsters. She fully embraces her terrifying, destructive power. So the ultimate question is, can you actually save a corrupt world without becoming something terrible yourself in the process? And perhaps more personally, what happens when the necessary monster you've become has to turn around and face the innocent friends like Kale who only remember the human you used to be?
Is there still room for humanity in a war against literal demons?
Exactly.
That is the big question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the Heir of Fire book by Sarah J. Maas. We will see you next time.
Thanks for listening.